raise your hand if you're feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, sad with everything that is going on in the world right now. I know that I sure feel a combination of all of these things. And honestly, if it weren't for my art practice and literature, I would be a mess right now. I am so incredibly grateful that I have my art practice to turn to. A couple of weeks ago, I was searching for different types of art that I could work on just as a stress relief, as a way to tune out the noise of the world and calm myself. And I came across neurographic art, which I had heard of before, but I never really learned very much about it. I read a little bit and I created my first ever neurographic art piece. And I found it very fun and also very relaxing. And so this week, I wanted to share something a little bit different that goes out especially for those of you who are struggling with these thoughts right now and want to find a way to just calm down and relax. I'm going to be sharing a neurographic art tutorial today. And of course, this is my take on it. I want to encourage you to use the supplies that you have. This is an intuitive type of art that requires no prior experience, and it's not about creating perfection or creating a masterpiece. It's about allowing yourself to calm down, to let go, and enjoy the process. All right, everyone, let's jump in. What's cool about neurographic art is that it can be done in many different ways using many different types of supplies, and it's still going to be a very enjoyable process, and you're likely going to arrive at very interesting looking results. I have taped a sheet of hot press 100% cotton watercolor paper onto my black cutting mat because I'm going to be bringing in watercolor. If you're going to be bringing in watercolor as well, or any kind of painting medium, you want to make sure that you're using paper that is adequate for water-soluble mediums or that can tolerate that paint. Here's the brush that I'm going to be using for the watercolor painting. I'm going to try to stick to one single brush. This is a size 14 round. And for my line work, I'm going to be using a black colored pencil. It's going to be a regular wax-based Prismacolor pencil. Whether you're bringing in a black Sharpie, any kind of marker, ink pen, whatever it is, to create your black lines, you want to make sure that it is permanent and smudge proof, especially if you're bringing in a painting medium. This said, you can decide to fill in your spaces and to do your color work with colored pencils, pastel, or something like that. And if you choose to go down that route, then you can essentially work on any kind of paper and you don't have to worry about your line work being permanent and smudge proof. Aside from these supplies, make sure that you have at least 3 different circular objects that you can trace around. And I would say make sure that they are different sizes so that you can arrive at a nice variety of circles in your piece. I made sure to sharpen my black colored pencil to a nice fine tip. And again, for this you can use a marker or an ink pen. Whatever you prefer is perfectly fine. So what you're going to do is you're going to create squiggly lines and take your time with these lines. You can do loops. There is no specific pattern or shape that you're trying to create. Do this in a free-flowing way. Clear your mind and let your hand and wrist and arm go. Right, and then I'm just reaching another edge. I'm going to end it over here. So that is my first line. I'm going to create another one. I'm going to start this one over here. Start with a loop. I'm going to cross the previous one right here. Starting this one over here. Sometimes I start with a loop. Larger curves, smaller curves. Try to let go and clear your mind. Just think of the here and now. Think of the line that you're creating and just allow the line to take shape on its own. Let go of expectations. Let go of trying to control things.
We're not trying to create a masterpiece. This is just for you. Okay, so I think those are enough lines. All of these lines that I created, I started along one of the edges of my paper and I ended the line in another edge. And at this point, we're gonna start bringing in our circular objects. Just place it wherever you think it'll look okay. Trace around it with whatever drawing medium you're using. So we have a circle there. And I'm gonna create another circle with this camera lens protector somewhere around here, a smaller circle somewhere over here. So I have 3 circles. You can add more circles if you'd like. And this is essentially the first phase finished. Because I am using a very thin drawing medium, I'm going to go over my lines to thicken them up and make them bolder before moving on to the next phase of this process. If you used a thick Sharpie to create your lines, there is no need for you to do this. Something that I love about going over my lines again is that I end up with a bit of a sketchier, more expressive look. And I'm also able to thicken up certain sections of my lines as I'm going over them, which creates a line weight variation in the piece, which in my opinion leads to more interesting, more dynamic results. All line weight variation means is simply when your lines are thinner in certain places, lighter as well, and thicker and darker in other places, as opposed to having all of your lines be one same thickness and one same blackness, if you will. Neurographic art was developed by a psychologist in 2014 whose name was Pavel Piskarev, and he developed it as a way to help process emotions and reduce stress. And the idea with this type of art is to mindfully immerse yourself in the drawing process, in your drawing of free-flowing lines, with a specific sequence of steps. And the idea is that this process will transform or turn your fear and the chaos that you're feeling into calm and peace through the repetition of lines and shapes. The benefits of this type of art practice include stress release, increasing of mindfulness and relaxation, emotional expression, enhanced creativity, improved focus and concentration. And what's cool is that it's accessible for everyone. It doesn't matter what age you are or what level you have in terms of art and creativity. All right, so moving on to the next part of this process. In this phase, we're going to be creating a little bit of softness and roundness in some areas where our shapes and lines intersect. In many cases, when our shapes and lines intersect, we are left with these pointy kind of triangular shapes. For example, this loop right here, this same line creates a bit of a pointy angle here at the corner, a triangular little section, right? Whenever you have any little section like that, like here or here or here, what you're going to be doing is creating a little bit of roundness by creating a curve there and then filling that in with whatever material you're using, whether it's a marker or an ink pen, whatever it is, you're just going to round that out. And that creates a little bit of a soft effect. So for example, here I have another one of those little corners. See how I make like a little smile, a curve, and then I fill that in? So take your time finding these little areas and creating softness in those areas by adding a curve and filling that in. Smile and then fill that in. We're rounding out the pointy angles that we've created. You're not going out with your curve, you're going in. Take your time, breathe, Relax. It's not necessary to round out every single corner or edge of your shapes. I just do some here and there and come back to see everything as a whole, and then just stop whenever I like how things look. Creating connections until I arrive at something that I like. All right, I like how things are looking. I'm gonna leave it as is. Before moving on to my watercolor, I'm gonna be bringing in 3 different colors of colored pencils. I'm gonna do a bit of a gradient going in from the edges of my circles, releasing as I make my way toward the center of the circle. And you may choose to do all of your color work with colored pencils and not with paint. That is also going to lead to great results if you want to go down that route. Releasing and releasing as I make my way in. That's enough for that one. I'm going to take my orange, do the same thing for this other circle over here, my larger circle. Just making my way around, releasing that pressure as I make my way toward the center. I'm really not pressing down hard at all. And I want to encourage you to choose whichever colors you believe will help you feel better in this moment. And going into my last circle with my green, this is chartreuse. I love this green. And when I paint in these circles, I'm going to be using a similar color to the color that I'm using right now with colored pencil. I really like it when I leave some sections completely unpainted, especially when painting with watercolor. I really like bringing in the bright paper as part of the piece, and I've kind of gotten used to that. But if you want to fill up everything with color, that is perfectly fine as well. And what's important to have in mind as you're painting this is that this is not a mosaic where every single shape you've created has to be a different color. We are going to be painting entire sections in one same color. And I'm just going to prepare a few different colors on my palette here. I really like more muted colors, maybe pop of brighter color here and there, but that's just me and my personal taste. So if you like brighter colors, by all means go ahead and use brighter colors. I think this is a nice color, very similar to the blue that I was using inside of this circle here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use this as is to paint that circle. And I'm just gonna pull some of the same blue into this section over here. See how we end up connecting shapes with color? I'm gonna try to leave a little bit of that colored pencil texture shining through there. Gonna mix a couple of colors together. Try not to overthink it. And I'm going to pull this orangish color into this area here. Paint this in. So this orangish color extends into this section here. All right, I need a green for my other circle. Just trying to create a similar green to what I have there. Okay, filling in this circle. And I'm choosing what area around the circle I'm going to be painting with this green. I'm gonna do this entire corner. Bring it in. And pull it all the way to the right, incorporating this shape. I really liked how that looked where I have two shapes on either side of the circle. I think I'm going to do that with this blue one. So I'm just going to grab more of this blue and fill in this area with the blue. This is really a great practice for those of us who want to level up our watercolor skills. Painting inside of irregular shapes like this, very helpful. All right, so moving on from there, I'm going to start using other colors and choose a new area to paint in. This watercolor set from St. Petersburg is granulating. All of these colors are new and granulating. I'm going to use the same reddish color somewhere at the bottom as well. Going in with a purple now, choosing which spot I want to paint with this color. I want to encourage you to come back to see everything as a whole after you finish with every section, and then make your decision on what to paint next. All right, what other color do I want to bring in? Feel free to switch to a smaller brush whenever you feel you need to. You can see how in the sections that have already dried, the colors are separating and granulating because these paint colors are highly granulating. All of the paint colors in this set from St. Petersburg are granulating colors, which is definitely something that I wanted to explore with this piece as well. I'm almost done with the large areas that I wanted to paint in. I need to leave some white sections. All right, great. I think I like how these two sections look in white. I do want to brighten up this area here by maybe doing a glaze with a brighter yellow. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a bright yellow, then I'm gonna do that glaze there now that the paper has already dried. All right, I'm gonna go in with a bit of lemon yellow. I'm gonna add a tiny bit of the same color that I was using before, just so that it's not too different. And I'm just gonna be painting a glaze over this circle and this area over here for a bit of a brighter look. Just want to intensify this color a bit. That's much better. Now that this yellow is brighter, I think it pops out well against the more muted colors. I have unfortunately, especially with this one, covered up my colored pencil marks along the edges because I went in with another layer. Here I'm going over other areas where I want to intensify that color. Just make sure that if you are going in with another layer, that previous layer is completely dry. I'm going to allow this to dry, and after that, we're going to be moving on to the final phase of this process, which I like referring to as the embellishment phase. Everything is completely dry, and I'm going to go ahead and remove my masking tape. Once everything is dry, if you want to go ahead and add more details or define things a little bit more with your black marker or whatever drawing tool you were using in the beginning, just make sure that everything is completely dry. Otherwise, you can damage your paper. I've seen some great looking pieces where the artist has added lines or shapes inside of some of these areas. That's also something that you could do. I can go back to the colored pencils and maybe darken the edges of these circles again. For now, I'm just going over some of my black lines. Just cleaning up my black lines at this point. And if you want to add some final little shapes or embellishments, you can always do that as well. For example, here I can add some circles, different sizes right along this spot. Maybe cluster them in different ways. Some smaller ones, some larger ones. And you can continue adding as much detail as you'd like. All right, I am going to leave my piece at that and call this one done. I really hope that you enjoyed this neurographic art process. I hope that it brought you peace. And if you give this one a go, please let me know how it went. Leave it in the comments below. Or feel free to share it over on the community chats here on Patreon. It always makes me so happy to see your work over there. Thank you so very much for joining me for this tutorial. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy your art practice and see you very, very soon.